Leslie Simmons, a cousin from Tasmania, Australia, daughter of Uncle Charlie, visited the UK staying with Margaret and Kathleen. Next she came to stay in Chepstow for 3 days. We had a vegetarian moussaka with Catherine and Skye at Clay Hill. Skye had just come back from holiday in France with Ellie, a friend from Bristol. Before that he had spent a week in Malta with the Kingston University Diving Club. Now he was about to go on a tour of Europe with Ellie for 2 weeks, visiting Switzerland, Italy, Slovakia, Slovenia, Hungary and Poland. The following day we took Leslie to Chepstow Castle, the 1812 bridge over the River Wye and the 11th century parish church, before going to the Palmer Centre for lunch. After that we drove to Black Rock, where the train ferry crossed the Severn Estuary before the tunnel was dug at Sudbrook. We walked over to Sudbrook and spent some time in the museum there looking at videos about the building of the railway tunnel. In the evening I cooked a chicken chorizo bake, which was thankfully appreciated. Jan and I visited the new upcycle warehouse that had appeared in Chepstow, a great place where second-hand things are brought, repaired if necessary, and sold on. I was looking for a card table on which to assemble some wooden jigsaws I had bought, and they had 4 for sale. I was very pleased to be able to purchase a nice one for only £10. One of the jigsaws is a painting of the Geldeston Locks Inn by a Beccles artist named William Crowfoot. We knew a few Crowfoots in that area when we lived there, especially Betty Crowfoot, a Geldeston parishioner, well known for her expertise in Egyptian archaeology. Big Bad Wolf played at the Foxes Bridge Community Centre in Cinderford for the carers of people with Alzheimer's. We played 2 sets with a break for refreshments to a very responsive audience, many people saying afterwards how much they had enjoyed it. In the summer and at Christmas, Offa's Tykes were well received in the memory cafes, care homes and schools that we visited. Jan and I arranged a day here to remember her brother Roger, who had died a year earlier. We invited relatives and friends. Catherine and Skye came over the night before, and the following day 14 of us gathered in the conservatory. After listening to Roger's favourite song, My Way, we made our way to the eagle's nest with his ashes. In the middle of a very wet fortnight, we were blessed to have brilliant weather. With everyone assembled, I opened the ashes casket and walked along the parapet, pouring them over the side. A mist of ash rose in front of us and then as quickly fell away, revealing a blue sky and below it the River Wye, where Roger enjoyed canoeing, meandering its way out to the Severn estuary. Quite magical. Jan then read the prayer that Roger liked. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Back to the conservatory, and Jan shared copies of a comedy newsletter that Roger had produced one Christmas. We toasted Roger with sherry and then shared a buffet meal. Big Bad Wolf played at the Tourist Crafts Ukulele Day. We were first on at midday. There was a good audience despite the showers, and I think we did a good job of the songs. George Matthews recorded us, and it came out very well indeed, and we were very pleased with our whole performance. At the Abergavenny Food Festival, the PA engineers couldn't have been more helpful. The organisers were very welcoming and the audience very responsive. Just a shame that the heavens opened with thunder and lightning. In fact, this happened as we were singing Comes Love with its opening line, Comes a rainstorm, put wellies on your feet. Alan and Pat Jones recorded our performance.
Everybody's gone surfing, surfing USA. Raggeties and swans, Palisades, San Onofre and Sunset, on the beach at Lake, all over on Harbour, Wannabe Bay. Everybody's gone surfing, surfing USA. Daylight come and we wanna go home. Daylight come and we wanna go home. sunshine when she's gone. Anytime she'll stay at home. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. I hope they get home all right. Hey, Mr. Spaceman, won't you please take me along? I won't do anything wrong. Hey, Mr. Spaceman, won't you please take me along for a ride? Woke up this morning, in the park, Joe, taking it slow. I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh, friendship will never die. You're gonna see it's a destiny. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. She's that dog in the window. Little Martin, little waggly tail. How much is that dog in the window? I do hope that doggy, I do hope that doggy, I do hope that doggy's for sale. Meow.
Over the past year or two, Mum coped well with Dad's dementia, but it gradually worsened, and she was getting very tired. He was getting up many times in the night, refusing to go back to bed. Eventually it was agreed that he should move into Newton House, where he could be cared for by Caroline and her team. Over the next few weeks, he began to relive parts of his life, talking like some of the people that he knew. At one point, he started speaking in French as he relived his time on the battlefront in the Korean War. Was there a French liaison officer attached to his Royal Artillery battery? As the battle raged, Sean had the presence of mind to tell Dad to climb down into the dugout and pull a camouflage net over him. It worked. Dad calmly lay down and with bedclothes over him fell asleep. Mum visited him every day, and one day Shire Oaks was flooded and a kind farmer drove her to Newton House in his 4x4. After that visit, Dad died peacefully in the night, with Caroline at his side. Andrew found that the central heating at Oaklow was no longer functioning properly, and that there was mould in the property. Mum agreed to move into a nice large ensuite room at Newton House, and the family set about clearing Oaklow and putting it up for sale. Some items were kept by family members. I took the 3 army cartoon drawings of Dad and Grandpa Whiteman, which I reframed and hung in our music room. On the 23rd of November we set off with Catherine and Skye for Marston Trussell for Dad's funeral. A few days before, Kathleen, Caroline and Andrew had gone with his coffin to the crematorium, from where his ashes were collected. The order of service, written by Dad, was conducted by the local vicar, who read out memories of Dad from the six of us. There were about 60 people there, made up of family, friends, and former parishioners. Dad's ashes were placed in the graveyard where baby Rosemary had been interred 60 years before. We then went on to a nearby pub for lunch. At the beginning of 2020, Big Bad Wolf met up for several rehearsals, which led to performances at Malpas Court and a concert with buffet at the rugby club in aid of the RNLI, at which £600 was raised. Elizabeth and John came for a 3-night stay, with walks at Black Rock, Sudbrook, and through Chepstow town, including 3 museums. By now, COVID-19 had clearly arrived in Europe. Some Chepstow U3A groups were stopping future meetings. Future gigs for Big Bad Wolf were cancelled. We did a large shop at Tesco, and the UK government recommended that over 70s should self-isolate. I went very early to Lidl and the Bulwark Chemist. There was a long queue outside. Lockdown was announced on the 23rd of March. Paul had stored some of his possessions here and set out for the Hook of Holland ferry in June 2019. He made his way to a yoga camp in Sweden and then on to a festival in France. In Toulouse he helped with the renovation of holiday cottages. 6 months later, Paul returned to the UK. His plan was to move to France permanently and apply for French citizenship, with the aim of buying some land with like-minded people. At the end of January 2020 he left for France, but had to return at the end of March due to a lockdown being imposed in France and the UK. Catherine stopped her doggy daycare and dog grooming activities. We started to have our groceries delivered regularly, and I started my 4-mile walk regime. We bought a raised pond online, and Paul erected and painted it and added water lilies, goldfish, solar fountains, and a clean-up crew of water snails. Elizabeth made and sent to all members of the family face masks, which were invaluable as we ventured out into the new COVID-19 world. Jan produced a weekly video to advertise her ukulele and guitar courses at Usk, ready for life again after lockdown. Here she is singing We'll Meet Again. In May, Paul's tenants found another house to rent, and so he was able to move back to Bristol. We purchased 5 Velux blackout blinds to replace the 20-year-old ones which had deteriorated. A tricky job, but we managed between us to install them successfully. In the summer we were permitted to meet Paul, Skye and Catherine outside, bringing our own food and remaining socially distanced. We had a lovely time being together again. Since February, I had continued with Nicky the editor to produce the monthly Chepstow U3A magazine. We only had 50 copies of each edition printed, because now members were reading it online via the website. Kathleen placed Oaklow with an estate agent, and eventually a buyer was found for the bungalow at just over £200,000. Elizabeth and John picked up their new canal boat Tyrian from Liverpool and sent out a video of it being loaded onto a lorry and then winched into the water. Keith and Ruth Markham invited us for coffee in their garden before their move to Hampshire. We had planned a family get-together to celebrate Paul's birthday. However, he contracted shingles on his face that led to Bell's palsy. He noticed that his face felt paralysed and his eye would not close properly. He was in such pain that we were only able to meet him for a short time in his garden. Fortunately, 6 months later his condition had improved, but it was a long and worrying time. We ordered a Samson tablet each, which became a feature at coffee time each day when we played games on them. Jan and I drove to the Newport Wetlands Reserve, meeting the U3A birdwatching group to observe the starling murmuration there. Big Bad Wolf met twice in the conservatory to run through our latest set. Derek Shotton rang to ask if we could put together a performance that would be aired via Zoom to the members of Chepstow U3A for the annual Christmas party. So we booked Wollaston Parish Hall and spent 3 hours recording the 15 songs, and on December the 15th the virtual Christmas party took place.
Hey, where did we go? Days when the rain came down in the hollow, playing the blue game, laughing and running, skipping and jumping in the misty morning morning. Something with you, my brown-eyed girl.
Comes a rainstorm, put your wearers on your feet. Comes a snowstorm, you can get a little heat. Comes love,
Nothing can be done.
comes a fire, then you know just what to do. Over time, you can patch the edge. Comes love,
Nothing can be done. Don't try
I can see all obstacles in my way. All the dark clouds that cut me down. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
When the weather is fine and you know it's the time for messing around on the river, if you take my advice, there's nothing so nice as messing around on the river. There are long boats and short boats and all sorts of craft, and cruisers and keelboats and some with no draft. So take off your coat and hop in the boat, go messing up on the river. Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters are written, never meaning to send.
You see, I've always lived with these eyes before. Just what the truth is, can't say anymore.
I love you.
Yes, I love you.
Oh, how I love you.
I'd like to be under the sea, an octopus's garden in the shade. He let us in, knows where we've been, in his octopus's garden near a cave. I asked my friends to come and see an octopus's garden with me. I'd like to be under the sea, in an octopus's garden in the shade. What a day for a daydream, custom made for a daydreaming boy. I'm lost in a daydream, dreaming about a bundle of joy. What a day for a daydream, custom made for a daydreaming boy. I'm lost in a daydream, dreaming about a bundle of joy. What a day for a daydream. On the 5th of February 2021, during another period of COVID-19 restrictions, we took the 130-mile round trip to Chipping Norton to visit Jan's dentist for the first of 8 appointments that were necessary for a root canal implant. This was followed by 2 visits to Newport for our COVID-19 Pfizer vaccinations.
very well organised. After a prolonged period of rain, Jan set up a siphon to take the excess water out of the pond. However, she unfortunately forgot about it and found the pond completely drained. A local cat had seized the opportunity and had taken 2 of the fish out of the pond onto the patio, and then proceeded to eat half of one. Jan assumed that all the fish were dead, but they weren't, including the uneaten one on the patio. With the pond refilled, they gradually revived. We parked at Wydene School and walked along the recently opened footpath to Tinton, taking in the newly opened pedestrian cyclist route through the railway tunnel. The tunnel was dimly lit, and no torches were allowed because of the resident bats. From the initial lockdown on the 23rd of March 2020, I set myself a target of walking 1,000 miles over the coming year. I had already established 4 4-mile walks going respectively north, south, east and west from Penterry Park. So in order to achieve this, I would need on average to walk 5 of these each week. Spring and summer walking mostly on the Pierceville Woods Walk to the north, watching the lambs gambolling and growing week by week. Walking where the Romans established a road and bridge across the River Wye, passing the clear outline of an Iron Age fort at the highest point, and the viewing platforms created by Valentine Morris in the 18th century. A favourite walk during the winter is the Southerly Country Walk. After heavy rainfall, the sight and sound of the swollen mountain brook. In the 17th century, paper mills made the first Bank of England notes here. In the hedgerows and trees, the sound of birdsong, and looking skyward, the sun breaking through the retreating grey and black clouds. To the east lies the Chepstow Town Walk, another winter walk, with the Norman castle established soon after the conquest. The wonderful, iconic Wye Bridge, built in 1816, on the border between England and Wales, crossing the river at the point of highest tide rise and fall. Chepstow has the world's 3rd highest tide and the world's fastest rising tide, capable of rising 13 metres in 4 hours. Passing through the town wall, built in the 13th century, with Welsh Street outside and the cheap market Chepstow inside. To the west, an autumn walk in Great Barnet Woods, with its majestic beech trees, a canopy stopping the growth of other trees, but providing a width of access and a carpet of leaves that absorb rainfall. I completed the 1,000-mile marathon by the 23rd of March 2021, and then decided to halve my target for the next year to 500 miles. As the COVID-19 restrictions were relaxed, we visited Catherine on her birthday. Sky gave Jan and I a big hug. We hadn't been able to even touch for well over a year, but the 3 of us had had our second COVID jabs. With Paul, Adam and Jacob, the 7 of us sat outside under a gazebo on the new patio decking. Jan and I brought our own coffee and sandwiches, and Catherine made a vegan stir-fry for everyone else. We stayed until about 4:30, and the others went on to a local pub's outdoor eating area for a meal. Sky came over to stay with us, and we took a picnic and walked up to the eagle's nest and back. It was nice to have him here with us for 2 days. Skye heard that he had obtained a first-class BA degree, and to celebrate we bought him £10,000 worth of premium bonds. Here's a photo of Skye with his housemates, Bradley, Sim and Joss, with whom he shared for 2 years. We joined the U3A Natural History and Birdwatching group at Cannock Ponds in the Forest of Dean, about 15 miles away. The weather was good and we went on a slow walk around the first of the large ponds, mainly observing the variety of ducks living there. We all met again at Catherine's for an early celebration of my 70th birthday, and we shared some nice soup that Catherine had made. Elizabeth and John came to stay on the 10th of June and brought a cannabis patterned Hawaiian shirt that she had made for me.
Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitched by my doorstep, singing sweet song of melodies pure and true, saying, this is my message to you.
That's lovely.